The cabin lights were dim, the engines hummed like a heartbeat in the dark, and somewhere in the back row a young girl clutched an empty blister pack with shaking fingers. The pills that kept her alive were gone, destroyed by the very person meant to protect passengers in the sky. A flight attendant, smiling through a mask of authority, had snapped them in half and tossed the pieces into a trash bag as if they were nothing, as if the girl herself was nothing. Her father, sitting beside her, watched in disbelief as the life-saving medications that kept his daughter's heart from collapsing were crushed before his eyes. What happened next would turn a normal transatlantic flight into a moment the world would never forget. If you believe kindness still matters, if second chances exist even at 30,000 feet, then like, comment, share, and subscribe, and tell us in the comments where you're watching from, because stories like this remind us that humanity is everywhere. The girl's name was Ariel Thompson, 17 years old, her hair in tight curls that framed her delicate face, and her eyes glowing with both vulnerability and quiet strength. Ariel had a rare heart condition, the type that required precise timing with medication to prevent dangerous arrhythmias. Every dose mattered. Her pill routine wasn't a luxury, it was survival. She and her father, Michael Thompson, were flying from London to New York after a medical consultation with a specialist. The trip had been exhausting, full of uncertainty, hope, fear, and long hospital corridors where the future sounded like echoing footsteps. But they were together, father and daughter against the world. Michael had promised her that as long as he could breathe, she would never be alone in her fight. Michael, a former Air Force pilot turned commercial aviation safety consultant, knew airplanes better than most. The irony of what happened would stay with him forever. When Ariel pulled out her medication bag, as she did every day at the same time, a flight attendant named Catherine approached with suspicion in her eyes. She didn't see a girl fighting for life. She saw a security concern. The pills weren't labeled in the usual pharmacy bottle because they came directly from the specialist clinic. Ariel's condition required custom packaging for dosage stability. Catherine, already tense from a disruptive passenger earlier, demanded proof, documents, authorization, a process impossible mid-flight. Ariel tried to explain, her voice trembling as the clock ticked painfully toward the moment she needed her pills. Michael's instincts urged calm. He explained, clearly and respectfully, that his daughter needed her medication immediately, that he had supporting medical paperwork, that this was urgent. But Catherine's pride was louder than reason. In a moment of authority fueled by misunderstanding, she grabbed the pills, crushed them between her fingers, and tossed them away, saying they were unverified substances. Time froze. Ariel's breath hitched. Michael's heart broke in silence. The seconds afterward were chaos inside Michael's mind. He looked at his daughter, her eyes welling with tears, her fingers gripping his sleeve as her pulse already began to race. He could hear her heartbeat stuttering against her ribs. The cabin seemed smaller, the air thinner, the distance to the ground impossibly far. He knew the condition, he knew the symptoms, he knew the clock. Without medication, Ariel could go into sudden cardiac distress. Without help, she could slip away, right beside him, thousands of feet above the ocean. He took a deep breath that felt like grief and steel at the same time. Michael stood, slow and controlled. He walked to the cockpit door with the stride of someone who once lived in the world behind that door. His voice was calm when he told the captain what had happened, but beneath the tone was something undeniable, pain sharpened into resolve. He wasn't just a father. He was someone who understood aviation protocols better than the flight attendant who had just endangered a passenger. He asked for an emergency landing. The captain hesitated until he looked into Michael's eyes and saw a truth stronger than any policy, a father ready to fight the world for his child. The plane began to descend, passengers murmured, confused. Catherine, realizing what she had done, stood frozen at the rear of the cabin. The other crew members scrambled, searching for medical support on board, asking if anyone had emergency medication or experience with cardiac care. A nurse stepped forward from row 21, introducing herself with urgency. She placed her fingers on Ariel's wrist and felt the wild rhythm beneath her skin. Her eyes widened, the situation was critical. As the plane dropped altitude, turbulence shook the cabin, but Michael held his daughter's hand with steady fingers. He whispered encouragement into her hair. The girl who had spent her teenage years learning what pain felt like tried to stay awake, tried to hold on to his voice, tried not to slip into the dark. She could feel her heart racing without rhythm, like a broken drum. The emergency landing happened in Reykjavik, Iceland. When the wheels hit the runway and the cabin jolted, the entire plane let out a collective breath. The doors opened to cold air, bright lights, and a medical team rushing inside. Ariel was lifted gently, her face pale but eyes open. The nurse stayed by her side until paramedics took over, explaining everything quickly and clearly. One of them whispered reassurance to Ariel in Icelandic, even though she couldn't understand the words, but she understood the tone. She understood care. Michael stayed beside her all the way to the ambulance. He didn't look back once at anyone on the plane. Not the passengers. Not the captain. Not the flight attendant whose mistake had nearly cost him everything. In that moment, the world was narrow, just him and his daughter. Just breath and heartbeat. Hours passed in a quiet hospital room filled with foreign monitors and the smell of antiseptic. Ariel slept while doctors stabilized her condition. Michael sat by her bed, his eyes red but dry, his hand wrapped around hers like a vow. He replayed the moment again and again, the sound of pills breaking, the look in Ariel's eyes, the helplessness he felt. But he also replayed something else, the nurse stepping forward, the captain listening, the strangers who suddenly cared. Human failure had brought them to the brink. Human kindness had brought them back. When morning light touched her face, Ariel opened her eyes. They were tired, but alive. Michael leaned forward, his forehead touching her hand. He didn't speak. He didn't have to. She smiled weakly, a smile made of gratitude and love. They were still here. Together. Later, the airline issued a formal apology. Catherine was suspended and enrolled in intensive training. Michael, despite everything, refused to give a statement that condemned her character. He said something that silenced the room: people make terrible mistakes when they don't understand what someone is going through. If this leads to better training, better compassion, then something good can come from something awful. That sentence spread across the airline. It spread to every newsroom. It taught strangers to look twice before judging someone's struggle. It reminded people that behind every pill, every medical device, every anxious breath, is a human story. If this story touched your heart, please engage with the video, like it, comment on it, share it, and subscribe if you believe compassion is a choice we must make every day, not just when it's easy. Comment below how you would have reacted if you were in Michael's place, and whether you believe the world can learn from moments like these. In the years that followed, Ariel recovered enough to live her life fully. She studied medicine, specializing in cardiology. She wanted to be the voice her younger self needed. Michael watched her graduate, his heart full, knowing that the flight that nearly took her life also gave her purpose. They told their story not to reopen wounds, but to inspire awareness, awareness that could save someone else someday. The world didn't change overnight. But one flight, one mistake, one act of courage, and one father's love created a ripple that would never fully fade. And somewhere, on some future flight, a crew member would pause before judging a situation they didn't understand, and instead ask a question, offer kindness, or simply listen. Because compassion, like flight, is a miracle made of intention. Now tell us in the comments what part of the story touched you the most.